Hi, Mark Streshinsky again, to tell you about this summer's production as we continue our opera season. Let's see, we started with Ariadne of Naxos, which kind of examined the difference between the people of classical art and the people of popular art. We then had the manga flute, which took a classic piece and put it in an environment of popular culture using the manga scenery and projections. And now we have a piece which is a double bill. I'm calling the whole evening City of Sin. It's two pieces that have the commonality of both taking place in sort of a mythical or semi-mythical desert city in which anything goes. The first piece is Kurt Weill's Mahagonny's Songspiel, which is the precursor, the smaller version of his large opera, The Rise and Fall of the City of Mahagonny. Kurt Weill is a composer that was primarily in the 20s. His medium is very jazzy and interesting music. He wrote both for the Opera House and for Broadway. And he is known for pieces like Street Scene, especially Threepenny Opera, and then he also did Broadway musicals like Lady in the Dark. Fantastic music and a really interesting show. This piece, as I said, the precursor to the large Mahagonny, premiered in Baden-Baden, Germany in the early 20s. And what's really interesting is that we think Jonathan Kooner, who is our music director, of course, we think his father was involved in the premiere of this production. The basic premise of the Mahagonny Songspiel is there's a group of people who are sort of from the underbelly of society. We don't really know what they are exactly, but we know they're drunks, pimps, prostitutes, gamblers. We're not really sure, but we know that they want to go someplace where there are no rules because they're tired of the rules and the bother. And so they go to this place called Mahagonny where there's nothing that they have to deal with or worry about. They can just be lawless and do their thing. And they decide eventually that Mahagonny is not such a great place. And in fact, they eventually decide that in fact, there's really no such thing as Mahagonny at all. So that's the first half of the evening of City of Sin. The second half is a much newer piece written about 5 years ago by a composer named Daron Hagen, who recently had a great success in Seattle with his production Amelia. Daron has written a piece called Vera of Las Vegas. And it's a piece that really is very interesting to me. The words of it are very, very interesting. It's very abstract and I would say onomatopoetic. Interesting use of popular culture references, and the story of it is that there are two Irish Republican Army fugitives. They've been hiding out in New York, but they somehow have gotten themselves to get on the show Wheel of Fortune. And so they're traveling by plane from New York to Los Angeles, but they suddenly realize that they have a layover in Las Vegas. What they don't know is that they're being followed by an INS agent named Doll. She's posing as a stewardess, and she gets them somehow to have a longer layover in Las Vegas. She tells them that they've won a contest to have an all-expenses-paid day in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, she contacts her friend Vera, who is also an INS informant, former blackjack dealer, and, by the way, a transvestite. And Vera is going to help Doll catch these two guys. The two guys are named Taco Bell and Dum Dum Divine. So they get to Las Vegas, they meet up with Doll, they meet up with Vera, but things start to change, and Doll finds herself falling in love with Dum Dum, and Vera and Taco Bell begin to realize that they have a connection too. Eventually, what happens is that the two men are of course terrorists, and they throughout the whole piece they hallucinate and they remember about their times in Ireland and the violence that they were involved with. So the piece has elements of both humor and sort of horror. So it's really interesting as it goes through, and it has also a very jazzy pop music kind of feel to it. By the end of it, it's definitely feels like a nightmare, and I can't wait to get working on this piece because I think that it's so interesting, and I think the audience will really, really like it. So for the cast we've put together, we have Vera of Las Vegas is headed up by Brian Asawa, one of the best known countertenors in the world, a former Adler Fellow. In fact, the first Adler Fellow ever that's a countertenor. He's a good friend and he's agreed to come and do this rather crazy part. He's joined by Heidi Moss, who plays the part of Doll. We have Paul Murray, who plays the part of Dum Dum Divine, and Thomas Glenn, a former Adler Fellow and recent Grammy winner for Dr. Atomic, is doing the part of Taco Bell. For let's see, the three of them, Paul and Tom and Heidi, will also be in Mahagonny Songspiel. There's no part for a countertenor in that. And they'll be joined by Sasha Jogerst and Michael Denoyers and Aimee Puentes, filling out the cast of the Mahagonny Songspiel. So we're really excited about this evening. It's going to open July 29th with performances also August 3rd and 5th. And the best way to get tickets is by going to www.westedgeopera.org. See you there.